Everybody wants to be on the Walt Disney Company board, but the Disney Company has responded, and they have considered your request, and they have decided to elect themselves to the board yet again. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Good morning. I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and today I am joined by one of my favorite pop culture commentators. I think that really minimizes what he does because he's also a business commentator, Mr. Culture Casino.
Well, greetings, Jonas, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I just chat about the things I might have a tangential interest in. But I'm here talking about something I have a big interest in because, I want to elect myself, too.
Well, you'll have to get through the Walt Disney Company board in order to be considered for the board. In this story, out of the WaltDisneyCompany.com, an interesting little outlet with a very specific and niche focus. The Walt Disney Company nominates 12 directors for election at upcoming annual meeting of shareholders. This out of Burbank, California, January 16th, 2024. Being as it's January 17th when we're recording this video, this is hot off the presses. The Walt Disney Company Board of Directors disclosed its recommended slate of 12 nominees for election at the 2024 annual meeting of shareholders in preliminary proxy materials filed today with the Securities and Exchange Commission. I think this is really great. That'll boost the Security and Exchange Commission's numbers. They've been really suffering at the box office. The board has unanimously recommended that shareholders vote for Mary T. Barra, Safra Katz, Amy L. Chang, Jeremy Darish, he's one of the new ones, Carolyn Everson, who is a proxy, an appointee of Third Point, which is owned by Dan Loeb there, controlled by Dan Loeb, Michael B.G. Froman, James P. Gorman, Robert A. Iger, otherwise known as Bob, the once and future CEO, Maria Elena Lagomasino, Calvin R. McDonald, Mark G. Parker, that's the CEO of Nike, and Derica W. Rice. The director candidates possess significant experience in implementing strategic priorities while growing shareholder value, debatable, across a spectrum of, across other businesses. That makes sense. Across a spectrum of varied businesses, and have the skill sets, experiences, and professional backgrounds representing a diversity of perspectives and characteristics that are particularly relevant to Disney's business and strategic executives. My goodness, you've got too many adjectives in there, whoever wrote this. I don't know if it's Jolene or if it's Safra or who wrote this, but guys, you could have really pared this down. Do you want people to not read it? I mean, come on. You're the Disney Company. You have a 100-year history of storytelling, as you like to say. I'm not going to read this entire gobbledygook right here. It should be bullet points to make it easier to read. The board has been continually refreshed, that's debatable, with a focus on directors whose industry experience is additive to the company's strategic priorities. Here's the guys that I want to talk about specifically, the new guys. This includes the recent additions of Darish, a former executive chairman and group chief executive officer of Sky. Culture, what is Sky?
Well, not the vodka, right?
I don't believe so. I'm not very familiar with the liquors.
You mean the large global news organization?
Yes, yeah, and also media organization. Yeah. They're more popular in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, Australia, UK,
Yep. And Gorman, the executive chairman and former chairman and chief executive officer of Morgan Stanley. That's right, James P. Gorman. As I often like to point out, that J.P. Gorman is the CEO of Morgan Stanley, which is, of course, in competition with J.P. Morgan, both of whom will be standing for election at the annual meeting. The average tenure of the current board is 6 years, with 7 out of 12 serving less than 6 years, and the board is led by an independent chairman. So this is where they try to spin the fact that nobody has much experience. They're using continually refreshed to try to put a positive spin on this serving less than 6 years aspect here. Let's see here. Here we get into the spice. The board does not endorse the nominations of Nelson Peltz and James Rasulo put forth by Trian Fund Management and its affiliates. Nelson Peltz, supported by former Disney executive Ike Perlmutter, collectively known as the Trian Group. The board recommends that shareholders do not vote for the Trian Group nominees, and they reject a related proposal from Trian Group to amend the company bylaws. This is where it's spicy, guys, because Nelson Peltz has been waging a proxy fight against the Walt Disney Company for years now. And Culture, who is James Rasulo?
Russillo was actually a big part of the Disney Corporation. He would be returning to the company at a time when they desperately need some real leadership, especially at the top. Somebody who could adequately describe the financial situation that the company is in and maybe reveal unto others that it could be much better and maybe
Hmm.
a little less suspect in terms of how things have been run for a recent period of years.
So he would be, I would consider him the CEO, the CFO and potential CEO candidate in the past of a
Yeah.
major media corporation.
Well, in fact, he was being man, you can't say that word anymore.
That's okay.
He was being positioned there. I'm going to use that word instead of taking care of yourself, adequately quaffing yourself. But no, he is being positioned to be the CEO at a point in time, and then he got swapped out for a candidate that later was eliminated because of some financial expenditures.
Right.
But yeah.
Some might say that he might have even been told that he was going to be the next CEO of the company.
Oh, well, I think he was actually. He was told that. I think it came as quite a surprise when he was, I'm going to say the nice word, demoted. So
Yes, and then he officially he left the company after
that's
he
right.
was demoted.
Yeah.
Um, Now, here's where it gets fascinating. There's a group of Blackwells. Sorry, let me be very specific. A guy named Jason Aintabi who runs a place called the Blackwells Group. They own some indeterminate number of shares. Out of the blue, they nominated three different executives that are friendly to Jason Aintabi to the board and wanted the Disney company to add them to their slate of electors. Those candidates were Craig Hatkoff, Jessica Schell, and Leah Sullivan. This person, Jason Aintabi, seems to be in favor of Bob Iger, but also a bit of a loose cannon here. I'm not sure that Bob Iger was asking for help. So this guy comes out of the blue and puts forward these candidates, and the Disney company responds. By the way, he also came forward and put it for the proposal to have Nelson Peltz and Jay Rasulo banned from all ballots. So I'll say he makes some bold moves here. The
Well,
board does.
yeah.
Culture, do you have anything to say there before we?
You know what? I'm going to hold my tongue because I was going to compare him to somebody, but I'm not
Yeah.
gonna.
Yeah, the board does not endorse somebody. Yeah, maybe he could be an attorney general of a state somewhere. The board does not endorse the nominations of Craig Hadcoff, Jessica Schell, and Leah Sullivan put forth for election as directors by Blackwells Onshore One LLC, Blackwells Capital LLC, and Jason Aintabi, and recommends that shareholders not vote for the Blackwells Group nominees. The board also recommends shareholders reject a related proposal from Blackwells Group. Yeah, I've seen that proposal. We'll be talking about that another time. So here is what's interesting to me, and I've read most of the proxy statement. After a certain point, they're just talking about executive compensation, and that is a majority of what the proxy statement is. And it's
And apparently up to $31.6 million for a certain executive this last year.
yeah, that's an interesting statement because that's down from 46 million or so. Maybe that
Hmm.
was because they needed to give him a signing bonus in order to bring him in. But that's an amazing amount of money. And there's probably a discussion to be had there about what the reduction in his pay really means. Because if you go over to the proxy statement, they talk about his pay being at risk or sorry, a majority of his pay being at risk metrics. So bonuses based on performance and things like
Hmm.
that. So if his pay went down, it's either because his bonuses are no longer relevant or his performance has decreased. So,
Well, what incarnation could it be?
and of course they wrote off $2 million. Sorry, was it no? It's $2 billion in Disney Plus content in order to hit those cost cutting metrics. Now,
Well, and they destroyed an entire hotel concept, that boutique thing, that little starship in the
yeah,
parking lot.
because they decided to put a cruise on land and put it in a place where there were no windows and no doors and challenged guests to find a way out. Anyways, there's two theme park references for you there.
Yes, there were.
The thing that I wanted to point out is Jeremy Darish is from Sky, and therefore he's a media executive coming in.
Yes,
We've
he
often
is.
complained here on That Park Place and on the WDW Pro channel and Valiant Renegade that the Disney company has failed to put media executives on its board. Well, Disney has augmented its language here. And apparently they consider themselves to, in fact, have 3 media executives
Oh boy.
on their board. It's a little hard to read here, but under board and executive oversight, one of their objectives this year was to increase board expertise in media and entertainment. Over the last 2 years, the board has appointed 3 veteran media executives: Jeremy Darish, a media executive of a global multi-platform TV provider. Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Well done. Good job. That's an actual person.
Yeah. Carolyn Everson, a media and advertising technology executive with deep experience in consumer-facing companies. And of course, Bob Iger, seasoned media and entertainment executive. This is fascinating to me because I don't consider Carolyn Everson to be a media executive in, I'll say, the traditional sense of the word. I was looking through why they would consider Carolyn Everson to be a media executive. And if you go to her profile page, she, I believe, worked with Meta.
Oh, yeah. My goodness.
So, yeah, right here, she's the president of Instacart, which, okay, that's great. Vice president, global marketing solutions, Meta Platforms Incorporated. So they consider Facebook to be a media company by this definition. And I'm beginning to understand, yes, they did consider Facebook and Google and AT&T and Apple all to be media companies in the technical sense of the word. They seem to be using this to benchmark their executive compensation as well. Because when you look at the steering committee for executive compensation, the board deciding how much everyone is going to be paid, the board, which is completely beholden to Bob Iger, deciding how much Bob Iger needs to be paid, the only person who appears to want the CEO job at Disney right now. I think this is a little bit of what's the word you use? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is a stretch. Yeah, they do have a
Yeah,
couple of TV shows on there, I suppose.
Look, I mean, she's definitely a marketing person. That's her thing. I mean, it's clear that's what her experience is. It's not necessarily media. She's marketing everywhere, whether it's advertising or not. And while those are valuable, that's not really media experience, unless, and I made this comment in private earlier, they're considering Meta a media company in their ability to deliver misinformation and other types of maybe not so truthful messages to the general public. If that's the case, that's what we're considering a media company, then yes, she has plenty of experience in that.
And look right here, MTV Networks company. She was an advertising executive
Yes.
for MTV. So
Yeah.
She's an ad exec.
Yeah.
That's great. I still struggle to consider this to be media experience.
Oh, I still think that, the ability to misinform, Jonas, we discount that. The ability to misinform is very valuable at a board level. Let me tell you.
Yeah. So, Culture, do you think this state? Oh, this is one more thing that I forgot. I was looking over the bylaws and the proxy statement. Apparently, Blackwells candidates and Trian's candidates will be listed on the same white proxy card along with the Walt Disney Company board approved candidates. So there's no longer this question about one sheet having all of the candidates on it and another sheet having the proxy statement, the proxy candidates from Trian Fund Management. They are now forced to include everybody on one card. Fascinating. So, Culture, before we wrap this thing up, do you what do you think is going to be the biggest issue coming up with the slate of electors here? Do you think that Nelson Peltz has a chance when it's a fair playing field here, or is Disney putting their thumb on the scale in order to try to push all of this out, and everyone's just going to vote by default here?
Well, I think Disney's always going to try to put their thumb on the scale. We've seen that. We saw it for 60 plus years in Florida, or maybe not that long, but a long time over in Florida. And you're seeing it in a lot of different places for Disney. So will they put their thumb on the scale or try to? Of course. Did they have to maybe lose some of the weight of that thumb? Yeah, as you pointed out, with the way that they're going to have to submit these things for votes. I strongly suspect that they still have the ace in their sleeve when it comes to just the sheer volume of votes. But I have a feeling that retail investors are unsatisfied with the performance of Disney, especially this morning, as the stock has taken a pretty decent hit, although it's had a lot of upward movement the last few days on the ESPN news. But I think Disney is really no longer the shining golden hilltop now. I think they're starting to be seen as a paper tiger, and they have plenty of weakness. And I think that investors in the company would prefer that prevailing opinion change back to Disney being something golden. But
if only our viewers all understood how correct you are. In looking over that proxy statement, there was so much sleight of hand that they put in there. For instance, talking about their global box office, $6.6 billion in global box office. Well, at least 1/3 of that is specifically attributable to James Cameron and the film that he made with absolutely no oversight from the Walt Disney Company. And the rest of that for 4.4 billion or so is let's not talk too much about how much it cost for them to make that 4.4 billion, because it might have been more than 4.4 billion to get there.
And they didn't even finish in first place.
That's true. That's very true.
They spent a lot of money, losing a lot of money, and didn't even end up in first place. So again, a lot of the ways things are being presented by the Disney company are misleading and dishonest, and dastardly. So Disney's got a lot of D's. Sorry.
The debate that I'm having here is whether or not to go through that proxy statement item by item and just point out all the things that we have. Let's say we have questions on here on why did you phrase it that way? Because it looks like it's more favorable to you than it would be if you just stated it clearly. And maybe that's the answer right there. So let us know in the comments if you want a long live stream, like a deep dive into that proxy statement, or if you just want a summary. Just let us go through and tell you the specific things, because sometimes people like the dirt and sometimes people just want to get a basic idea and move along. Of course, leave that in the comments section down below. Like this video if you like this video.
One last suggestion. If you know what the reference was, theme park reference was, that Jonas made during the video about no windows and no doors, let us know in the comment section below.
That's very good. I wish I had another reference to that to throw in there, but I don't want to put my thumb on the scale, as it were. Of course, if you know someone else who is interested in this kind of crazy stuff, please consider sharing it out with them. And we would love it. We would be honored if you would consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.